therapy for a while, so there will be pictures of my dog popping up. So, as this has kind of developed, I have found that I'm really just starting with one big question and then seeing where things go. So what I've been asking everybody is if there are any moments that stick out as moments of radical change.
And could that be like with my art? Like,
it can be with your art, it can be in your life, it can be kind of a ripple effect of the two.
right.
Because, like, for example, Robert Irwin, when he's talking about change, for him it was having this, like, series of questions and realizing that he'd done painting all his life, he was good at painting, he was doing abstract expressionist work, and then he decided that it wasn't working for him. And he had to kind of go through the motions to realize why it wasn't working for him, and then that's how he ended up at his big, like, installation,
Right.
like, you know, environmental phenomenological pieces.
Right.
And it wasn't that, like, painting was bad, or that he was bad at it, just wasn't.
Right.
So that's kind of the example that he gives. But I've been reading, like, some of his interviews and stuff, and there's this book that's just kind of a recollection of several, like, a long series of interviews with him, and I don't know, he just seems to, like, he just, like, takes life kind of one step at a time.
Right. Which I think you have to do because
Mhm.
you can't plan like the evolution of your work, or
No.
else it won't be good, or it won't
Right,
be interesting,
right.
or it won't be something that you care about in the moment. Because for me, it's funny. I feel like the drastic change happened before the art began, which was that I never took art like growing up. I think I took like 1 2-week watercolor class in the summer.
Yeah.
Just the way like anyone would do an extracurricular. And I didn't do art in school, like with my electives. But I thought that I wanted to do something that was creative. I just figured it would be more like design or a more like commercial application. And then I went to University of Maryland. I was from Maryland, went to University of Maryland and played field hockey, and then realized I wasn't happy having that be my whole identity. Like, it was just, I was going to graduate with a degree in field hockey, and I was so far from, like, being in any way, like, connected or like, engrossed and devoted to art, because I was taking, I declared as like a freshman at Maryland to be a studio arts major.
Okay.
And so, but I didn't think I would say that to everyone, well, I'm not going to go be a painter. It's just that when you're at a state school that doesn't have any kind of design,
That's what you have to
do. And then I figured later I'd figure something out. And so I think I took like, I'd taken just some foundation stuff, like drawing at one and 2D design. And I remember being in a hotel room for an away game, and it was like on a Saturday we had from 6 to 8 o'clock to do homework. I was like, to do homework? I mean, art takes. I spent
does not take 6 to 8 o'clock.
Right, out of 4 days, and it was crazy. We would be away, like we stayed in hotels for 3 weekends in a row.
Wow.
During ACC and then the ACC championship, and then 2 weeks for playoffs. And the first 2 weekends we were playing the games at Maryland, but our coach had us get hotels just so that we wouldn't be distracted, like distracted from field hockey, because that was everything. So I'm in a hotel, like on the floor, trying not to get paint on the carpet, doing this. Not even now looking back, that assignment just isn't a big deal at all. But at the time, I wanted to put more into it, and then by the spring of my freshman year, by like April, one day it just hit me, and I was like, I can't do this. I didn't know for sure what I wanted to do with art, but I knew it was like I was on the outside, like looking into this
That's
bubble.
where you wanted to be.
Yeah, and I wasn't in, like, the whole point of college is that's the time you finally get to do what you want to do.
Right.
After, being forced to take certain things growing up. So I think, like, so the first drastic change was that I quit field hockey, and then I stayed at Maryland one more semester the fall of my sophomore year, and then I made the drastic change to drop out of school because I was and I wasn't taking art that semester either. That's the thing. I was taking core classes
Other
you had
things
to
you had to
take,
get out of
like
the way.
astronomy and geology, and so I still felt just so distant from what I wanted to do. And it wasn't that I thought like I want to only do art. It's just that I realize now you kind of have to. It's easier when you know the thing that you love to be able to do the stuff you don't love because you understand, well, I have to take astronomy if I want to do art, but I wasn't even connected to the art yet. I was just not connected to anything really. And then, and that was also a big deal to like drop out of school. To take a semester off because like everyone from my high school
Yeah, all your friends are
went to college
proceeding
and I
ahead.
wasn't planning on like not going to college. And it was like, why don't you just stay in school till you transfer if you're going to transfer? And I was like, because I'm wasting my parents' money.
Right.
And then I waited tables for a semester and kind of saw like there were a lot of art people, maybe not like what's it, plastic arts, but like music people.
Yeah, artistic types.
Like waiting tables, and some of them were really devoted and were willing, loved what they were doing so much that they were willing to like work this horrible restaurant job to be able to do it, and to have the to have the flexibility and schedule to do shows. And that was when I started working on. I just put a portfolio together to apply to art school, and I got into and went to SCAD in Savannah.
Oh, did you?
Because I thought that like it was perfect for what I thought I wanted to do.
Right.
Like, it's a career school. You go
My
there
boyfriend went there for industrial design, which
Right.
is perfect for industrial design.
Right. No. And,
Yeah.
oh my God. And people scoff. People who are in fine arts, I don't know enough about their fine arts stuff. Maybe that's good too. But people scoff at it. And I'm like, the work that people were doing with design though is awesome. And their interior design grad program is really good. So I went there to do that, and then it was like, I still don't think this is
not
quite right.
right.
And I just started looking online and found MICA in Baltimore, and I didn't know it was 45 minutes from home, and it's this great art school, but I had never even heard of it.
Really?
And I stumbled across their environmental design program, and it was like, it's just so much more abstract. It's just a way of thinking and problem solving. And so I applied and went there. So this sort of like drastic change, I feel lasted like, I don't know, a year and a half of many big changes. And the funny thing though, what sort of changed my attitude, what got me really on track was when I was at SCAD, literally the first drawing assignment we had, just a still life, like nothing where we were being that creative. I had never really drawn before. I'd never taken a class where you learn how to draw with charcoal, and so I thought I wasn't good at drawing because I wasn't naturally able to just draw something realistically growing up. Like, just need to learn some rules. And then I remember I did my first drawing and got an A on it. Not that like grades in art matter so much, but it was like that one. The funny thing is all these big things happened, but that one moment was like, okay, now I'll work hard for the next assignment, and now I'll work hard for the next assignment, because I guess what I'm kind of leaving out is that I had like done well in school until about halfway through my junior year of high school, and then it was like I checked out. I just wasn't interested in anything we were doing, and luckily my GPA had been high enough before that like averaged out to
okay.
But I mean, it's now looking back, I can't imagine being that person that was so that just didn't try hard.
Yeah.
And then and so it continued on to Maryland, and I'm taking astronomy and geology, and I didn't ever go to class. I was taking that last semester at Maryland, I was taking a history class where for the final exam, I had to talk to a friend who was in the class to figure out where the room was, because I had only been to class like once or twice.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine?
It's really bad. But so I just think it's funny that on one hand it was like I was making some really big changes, but also I just always think back to that, like getting that clean slate and getting a good grade. That was more, it wasn't about the grade. It was like what it symbolized, like me being working hard again. And then I worked hard for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and then I applied to MICA with the portfolio that I had made at or from the work that I had done at SCAD. And then from the moment I got to MICA, it was like, I can start over with everything. I can start over with like my identity of not like the core of who I am, but just my like work ethic. I could be the person that's on top of things. And so then it was just like one thing and the next thing and the next class and the next semester and the next project. And then now, you know, it's just funny because like when I talk to people here, they can't imagine me just being so irresponsible. And I'm like, I'm all or nothing. Like either I'm
in here every day rearranging the little
right,
things.
or I'm like checked out.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know, I think like and then there's the big social change aspect of it. So I'm just, I feel like I'm just average, mainstream, and then being in like going to MICA that's super like small, really artsy, and then, you know, here being in the art program, and I barely even have access to like art history people. It's like studio art.
That's part of the reason I'm doing this project is because
we
don't have access to you guys, and it drives me
crazy.
insane. And like getting to know all of the, you know, the people that I have in the MFA program thus far has been fantastic.
Yeah.
Because we have great conversations that make me think differently. You know, I'm able to like provide different insight to them, and they're just great people.
Right. And it makes sense because like our professions kind of rely on each other, so it seems silly for there to be any kind of like, you know, divide. But I think like the fact that I sort of gave up like my whole, like I gave up the sport life, the life that would like, you know, tailgate for football games and play beer pong, like not that that's, you know, that I would have wanted to spend all my time doing that, but I enjoy that stuff. And then I feel like I came into a world where I felt so socially out of place, and it just kind of puts everything into perspective. Like I'm not here for the social fun easy side of it, then I sort of had no choice but to find like my sustenance from the art, and now it's like it doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like, you know, it's just what I want to be doing. But you know, all my friends right now it's mostly like my high school friends that are in the DC area, and they're, you know, getting old. Like I'm turning 27 and my boyfriend's 28, so they're like moving up in their jobs and getting nicer apartments, and not that they're, you know, they're not materialistic, they're just growing up. And so it's just further like it forces me more and more to think about why I'm here, because it's so tempting and feels like it would be easier if, like, in a lot of ways, you know, if I went a direction where I could have that kind of life that I don't have right now, and I don't know if I ever will.
I wonder that too.
Yeah.
I think most of us who come to graduate school in these kinds of areas wonder that. It's not like we're scientists who are going to go out and work for some big chemistry company or oil company or something.
Right.
We're clearly making a choice about where our life will eventually lead.
Right. Exactly.
Or not making a choice, leaving it very open-ended.
And then it's funny because I go, like, it's not like I feel bad for myself, like, oh my gosh, I'm giving up these social things, but I don't know, I guess it's like crazy to think where my head was just a few years ago, and how now I'm so thankful, and I'm just really glad that I made the choices that I made, even though at the time everyone was like, you're transferring 3 again? Like, where do you go to school now? Like, and then I also took classes at community college. I took like 3 a summer, over 3 summers, and that saved me like a whole year's worth of tuition at MICA. That's expensive.
Yeah.
So I had like 4 transcripts to send here.
Oh gosh, that's expensive though.
And then now, I know, right? And then I applied to a million schools, but it was worth it because then you have more opportunity.
Right,
for
yeah,
money.
I know, I understand entirely because I did the same thing.
Right. But I feel like I'm trying to think, just because I've really only, the 2 years that I've been here is the time that I've really been, you know, like finding my just continuing to pursue what I'm really interested in, figuring out what I'm really interested in. And it's felt like this very, not like completely linear, but it's been this nice like building progression where when I first got here, I didn't know how to hold a drill. And I had to make the choice right away to not worry about like
what you didn't
hiding
know.
that from people, because I learned so much faster.
Yeah.
And I think at first people were like, what the fuck? Like, why is she in this program? She doesn't know how to hold a drill. But then within a few weeks, I learned how to do all the basic stuff. And then I was taking a welding class, and that was like the first semester. And then I started making some things I kind of was interested in. And then this year's been a good step up, and I'm just really excited for this summer and next year. But I don't know if anything drastic has happened since I've been here. It's more just like a constant struggle, I feel like, with like that whole corny tortured artist thing. Part of me says, how could you be like, how is this torture? I get this amazing studio and I love doing it, but I think that it does feel like it almost feels like you're like in pain because
I totally understand. I mean, there are days where I have to remind myself, you're not paying for this degree.
Right.
They want you here. You can do this. Some days it's just like,
exactly.
why am I here?
Well, it's a cycle. I feel really guilty because I'm like, my parents are so supportive, and they're just like glad that I'm working hard, and then I'm like, oh my god, but then I know some other people in the program who just like have issues with their parents, and their parents aren't supportive, and I'm like, oh my god, I have it so easy.
You have to like work through those moments where you're just upset with everything and remind yourself, look at how lucky I am, though.
Well, I think it's like such a like knowing. I feel like what I've gotten out of all this schooling and the transferring and my experience here is that like the thing that will like carry with me for the rest of my life and be the most helpful thing is learning how to stay true to myself, know who I am, listen to myself no matter what other like white noise is going on. Because it's just constant talking, everyone talking about their opinions of what art should be, professors pushing things on you. You hear about another person getting into this thing and you think, oh, is that where I should be? No, you are supposed to be where
you're supposed to be.
What's right for you. And so I just always think like, well, what's the right thing for me that's going to help me in 3 years and 5 years and 10 years instead of, for 2 weeks because this is kind of what my professor would want me to do. It's like that is not going to sustain you.
Well, what I found doing these, I think I'm up to like 8 or 9 now interviews, and I've interviewed first year, second year, nobody from third year yet, but I've talked to a couple professors as well. Is that for some people there are like drastic changes that happen in their art, and for some of them it was just like finding out that that's what they needed to be doing.
Right.
The fact that they're making art is the radical change for them.
Right.
Which
I think is probably for me, and like just lots of little moments like that you take for granted. Like I'm starting to do this sculptural stuff from this painting. Well, I really started last spring, but I've just continued to try to build on it and figure out how to make it sculptural, and take it from 2 to 3D. But I kept feeling like there was promise, and I've made a lot of pieces from it. And it was just this one like painting 2 community college class I took over a summer. The professor showed us this technique, and then I dropped it for like 4 years, and then I've kind of picked it up and like just ran with it. And then I think, well, what if I had never taken that class?
Right.
And then I took like a fibers class undergrad at MICA, which was odd because I didn't need to. It was actually like hard to do that outside of your design. And then there were a couple techniques in there that like I've just built on and built on. And so you never know where like an idea or
it's gonna come
from that really takes you somewhere. Or like I didn't get into VCU for grad school. Like that would have been crazy if I did, because
Mhm.
I wasn't even a sculpture grad, and my portfolio was fine, but it was really design.
Yeah, I was just thinking about wondering how you got from design to sculpture.
Yeah, I had just, every time we had an assignment, I just pushed it as, I was just
Finding a way
to make the form really sculptural, and I didn't really care about like square footage and
Mhm.
bathrooms. But it was definitely like a way of thinking that I learned more than anything else in undergrad.
Mhm.
But then, so I didn't get in, but I emailed this professor, Kendall Buster, you know, who was here in the fall, and
Right.
I didn't know whether she had, you know, I didn't know anything about her before, like that she, you know, she was an established artist and had had a lot of success. I didn't know that. I just had looked through images of the professors there and their work. And I
Yeah.
said, I love your work, and emailed her, and she just, I could tell she was really kind, because she just emailed me back,
Mhm.
even though, like,
You got
know,
a lot of
people probably
won't
VC
email you back.
email VCU professors, because their sculpture program's really good.
Mhm.
And then it was so funny when I found out last spring that she was coming here. I was just like, you know,
Things work out.
things work out. And then now I'm staying in touch with her, and we go
That's
see her
great.
on my way home, and it's just like, I guess like from transferring all those times, that has also made me realize that even though I try to plan everything,
You can't.
you can't, and
Yeah.
just things end up working.
That's a realization that I came to a couple years ago too. That you can give yourself you can set yourself up for opportunities, and that's the best you can do.
Right.
And then things tend to find their way.
And like Phil, another sculpture grad, that his studio is next door. He was saying he stayed with Kendall over winter break on his way home, and it was a funny experience, he said. But he went and saw the VCU
Mhm.
facilities, and the undergrad studios. Like, it's insane. There was
Really?
like 180 kids that all
Oh
have their
my-
own cubicles, and they have
Whoa.
I don't even know what they're called, but these lift things.
Or
to
like
just-
hydraulic
hydraulic
system.
system all in the
Whoa.
space. They had this really expensive Smooth On brand mold making stuff and resin that like we'll only buy if like you want to use it for
Yeah, you
some really
absolutely
important
have
projects.
to.
It's like $100-something for a container.
Oh my gosh.
And they just have it there.
Yeah.
And he was like, you know what? Just being there though, like the grads just really pretentious because it's this #1 program.
Right, they're like totally taken care of.
Yeah, and he was just like, and also it's that, I don't think that helps your art to just think
Mm-mm.
you're a rock star, because you're not, because when you get out you realize how hard it is to be an artist.
Yeah.
So I think here, that's also, so he was saying like, you know what, I'm really glad I didn't get in there. And I'm kind of thinking, you know what, there's problems with every program.
Yep.
And this is far from, we don't have a lot of access to like, I mean, there's Atlanta, but we don't have a lot of, you'd think we'd have more like connections with
Yeah, we don't.
ways to show work, but we don't. And I appreciate, even though this place is a little like old school and just, I don't know, there's things about it, I'm trying to say how do I say this without it being bad, it's just, you know, it's not a design school in New York City, or
Right.
like a school that just, or like if I remember when I, like Syracuse and Cornell, I went to visit them, and they have, they can show, and they're set up to show New York City while they're in school. Like they just have
Right.
this access that we don't have. But the professors here are just, they just let you do whatever you want. Like,
Yeah.
they're just not down your throat. And I'm like, you know what, for me, that's the best thing. My work takes a lot of time, and it's really tedious, and I don't want to be talking to someone every day about these. I want to spread
Just
it
wanna
out.
sit there and get my work done.
Yeah, so I'm glad I came here, and it's, and they cover, like, all the sculpture grads have all the money covered, so it's just nice.
Yeah, that's nice.
And so there isn't like a weird divide, like some people that don't, like
Yeah.
some of the bigger programs, I think they don't have enough scholarships. So
Yeah, that's great that everybody comes in on an assistantship. Yeah, I mean I've had a similar experience in the program in art history. Like it's
Yeah.
not like I got into some top schools, but in the end there were several factors that led me to come here, and you know the result is that I have 2 awesome professors who are working with me on this
right,
really specific topic that I couldn't do very many other places.
Right.
And it's a very like congenial environment with, like, there's only 15 of us,
Right.
but maybe not even that many, and, you know, we get along and we're really supportive of one another, and with, you know, we're around the MFAs a little bit, and they seem, like, everyone that I've met in that program is so wonderful, and so, you know, in the
Right.
end, it's kind of like, well, this is where, you know, I needed to be.
Right. Like, what's a best place for you versus like,
What's the best
place
place?
on paper?
Versus what's the best place for you. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's kind of what it came down to in the long run, was a gut feeling and
Right.
trying to weigh those pros and
And
cons.
I can't remember. Are you from Georgia?
Yeah, I actually grew up 10, 15 minutes away from here. I live with my parents
wow.
now.
Aw.
Because it's,
Right.
you know, again, like having awesome, supportive parents who are willing
Right.
to kind of let you do.
Right.
You know,
and
they-
I lived at home in between undergrad and grad school, and saved a lot of money.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Way, so.
Yeah, I'm paying off my undergraduate loans
Right.
instead of paying rent right now. So,
Right.
you know, that was one of the perks of moving back home, but not a deciding factor. But I
Right.
knew that I loved it here, and, you know, just seeing, like, what people are doing with, like, labs works, getting involved in spaces outside the university and stuff.
Right.
It's, like, really cool to see how people take advantage of Athens, like, in a way
Right.
that I didn't really realize growing up here.
Right. For sure.
Because I didn't go to undergrad here, so, like, I left during those years that most people experience. Like, what's the,
Right.
like, intended experience for most people here?
Right.
But I much prefer being a graduate student in this town.
Yeah.
That's always kind of been more my crowd anyways. Like, even when I was in high school, that was way more interesting to me than
Right.
that. But, yeah.
I'm gonna do one weekend. Like I'm gonna have friends visit in the fall. I'm
Mhm.
gonna go to a football game. And
I haven't been to one
I'm
in
gonna
a
try
long
to get a
time.
parking pass and do the whole thing.
That'd be fun.
Just a day in the life. You know,
Yeah.
of your normal Georgia student.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you have any other things you want to talk about or questions, but
I don't know. I guess I knew this was gonna happen. Where like once I started talking, it would just be like, well, there really was no one drastic change. But I like talking it out just because
mm-hmm.
you don't realize, a lot of times you don't realize what's happening unless you stop and think about it. And
Mhm.
and I feel like it's really helpful too because I mean for lots of different reasons, but it's easy to focus on like what you're not doing and what you wish you were doing, and it can be reassuring to be like, okay, well, look at where I was.
Mhm.
Like basically I literally like failed 2 classes at Maryland. Like who does that? I mean, I was just checked out.
Yeah.
And when I could have gotten A's in the classes, and to go from that and thinking like what direction I could have gone
Mm-hmm.
versus how it's like I turned out, I do feel really lucky.
Mm-hmm. You trust yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a leap. It's a hard one to take sometimes.
And then now like I'll maybe it's hard to know when you should start worrying about like what you're gonna do, because what do you have next year?
Next
and
year
then-
is we're just 2 years in my program,
Right.
and I mean I already know that I'm going to take a year off because I'll have to job search, and I don't intend to go on for a PhD. Not for a couple of years, if ever. You know,
Right.
that's kind of where I'm at right now. I want to see what kind of work I can get with my master's, because you can get employed.
Right.
But you know, I'm gonna be writing my thesis in the spring, and it's just a really hard thing to look for a
Yeah.
job and look, you know, to apply to school, because you have to do that in December
Right.
for a PhD program. And so, like, I already know that I'm just gonna probably take another year and do what I
Right.
did after undergrad, which I think was helpful for me too.
Yeah.
And I try not to worry too much about that kind of stuff.
Right. No, and it's only because it's like choosing it. For us, it's like with sculpture specifically, you
Mhm.
need space and so much money for materials. So
Yeah.
it makes decisions hard, because I would love to be in DC where all my friends and family are, but
Right. It's really expensive. It is really cheap to live here.
And then my boyfriend is graduating at the same time
Okay.
from Old Dominion, Virginia
Mhm.
Beach, and but he's doing physical therapy, so it's
Okay.
totally different. But I'm like, this is so weird. Like, I don't want to become like, I'm not gonna go like become a housewife.
No,
you
I know that's how I feel. I'm like,
But it's like, well, if he wants to live though, like that's the tricky thing. I'm not gonna make him live in the middle of nowhere, like
Right.
an hour away,
Right, that's
because
how-
that's what I can afford.
that's kind of my boyfriend is also he's been working since he graduated.
Right, yeah.
I mean, he got a job about 6 or 7 months after. He's
Yeah.
been working there since last summer, and you know, he might move down here and try and look for like a job in Atlanta or something. But at the same time, I want to look for fellowships with museums and other programs and
Right.
stuff after I finish. And, you know, it's like, do I drag you with me to Minnesota to do a fellowship with the Walker? Or
I know. But I feel like, too, I've given, like, being at MICA for 2 years
Mhm.
and then being here for 3 years, I feel like I've spent 5 full years of recent years being like giving up my whole life pretty
Mhm.
much to go do this stuff. So I sort of feel like my goal, at least after I graduate, is to try to find a way to do both.
yeah, to take it with you somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's possible. You just have to, again, kind of find the right situation in order to make both things happen.
Yeah.
But it's a little soon to worry about that too much.
Yeah, no. And I'm just trying. I feel like it doesn't help the work, and I have professors that do ask or some more crazy. Well, basically she's Amy Wang. I don't know if you know her.
Mm-mm.
She's crazy, but she has really good insight into work. But she also is like starts asking these really specific questions about like what kind of galleries.
Are you gonna show
Like,
him?
how would your work? What kind of galleries would you? I'm like, I'm not worrying about that right now. Like, that's not gonna be.
That's not gonna
You
happen.
don't want to start at my point in my like basically 2 years into sculpture, start making work to try to.
Get it to a
Not that I
gallery.
can't. I'm totally fine with making look like this is like one thing I did in between undergrad and grad school. I
Oh, cute.
started doing like charcoal dog drawings, and then now I've done like I spread it to other things too,
Might
like
have to
houses and
get you to make something. 'Cause
well, it's
this beauty, Ginger.
well, and then I've got I haven't been doing marketing for it because I'm not doing it while I'm in
Yeah.
school. But like so now it's just through word of mouth kind of
Right.
thing. But like my parents both together, they had to go to like 3 weddings of friends' kids in
And
recent
they
months,
needed-
and so I have like 3 lined up that they're paying me to
Right.
do when summer comes. But anyway, I'm totally fine with doing things to make money. I feel like I might try to keep it separate. Like,
Mhm. Have your business and then have your studio. Yeah.
yeah. So you do your presentation? On
Yeah, I have to give a
Tuesday?
presentation on Tuesday. So I'm trying to think about how I'm going to, like, what I want to talk about.
Right.
So I'm going through some more interviews and stuff with Robert Irwin and trying to pull some more of his ideas about art because he has this very like open sense of how one can go about it. Like it's very individual and
Right.
and I'm probably going to talk about some of the different things that have come up that are different or the same in a lot of interviews and just kind of
Right.
give a rundown of what I've discovered, like both for me, like in this process,
Yeah.
and just kind of more generally speaking.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
And what I'm going to do, like the product at the end of this is a website, like a WordPress website with the interviews, and then I'm going to scan in all my notes
Cool.
because I can't do transcript and I can't actually read
Right.
most of these. But
Right.
and then, I mean, if people want to send me work, I've been asking them to send me some work to include
Right,
with the
right.
site. And then, each interview will have its own little page, and so it'll just kind of be an archive of them.
I can send you some images.
Yeah, that'd be
Um,
awesome.
Oh yeah, I was like, give me your email. That's how I got you here. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I think it's gonna be. We'll see if she likes that or not.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'll send you the link to it when it's up and
Cool.
running. That's one of the things I have to do tonight and tomorrow is just get all of
Yeah,
these interviews
like-
processed and
I know I think she like stayed up all night last Sunday trying to finish.
Courtney's presentation went really well though.
Yeah.
She did a great job and the work was really cool. I liked.
Yeah, like that's the other
looking
thing.
at it.
Why the class is really good for her because she's interested in like she works. I don't know. It's like I don't want to like
I mean,
blanket statement, but she more than like me, for instance, likes
she's very processed.
Yeah,
driven,
like-
and
and
she talked about like time consuming processes being very like, or like, like being very involved with the process, like being really important to her.
And she says, "I don't think that's."
It's something like that.
No. You're saying the right thing. Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't mean it like that. I just meant it's so funny too how people. Sorry. No, I.
I mean, I have her exact words somewhere
Right,
on my
right.
computer, but
Right. No, I didn't. But yeah, I was like, no, I don't mean it like that. I meant that.
no, she has a very specific way of describing it, and I don't. That
No.
was my.
But like some artists are more into what like thinking about what other artists like learning from
Yeah.
them and the reason why I was like I don't know how to say this is because I was like I don't mean it like a bad or good
No,
thing.
no, I
meant,
know that.
like we're all
We've talked about that, and some people have actively included that, like, what happens if in their projects and the MFAs, like what happens when I try and like make something in the style of this person.
right.
So I mean, some people are definitely interested in what that means.
Right. And I'm more just because I just almost like don't like doing that, and it's just hard to find a balance because I want to make sure I'm seeing the art that's out there,
right, but not
internalizing it,
not
not letting
spitting it back
myself,
out.
yeah, not letting myself subconsciously think I have to make it look a certain way.
Yeah.
That's the other thing about like blogs, man, like all the art blogs.
I don't read art blogs.
They're just.
I'm a terrible art historian because I don't like. I should start reading the New York Times, but I don't keep up with all of that.
Right. It's how do you find that balance though? Like as in your place or our place between knowing without letting yourself get sucked in and think you have to think the way that these critics are talking.
Right, exactly.
It could be bullshit. And
Right.
I visited art appreciation class on Thursday for my teaching practicum class. We have to observe
Okay.
teachers, and they're like pretty much all non-art majors.
Yeah.
And they were
So
doing these
terrifying to me.
They were doing these funny presentations where they like with groups they had to pick a painting and then do like really short, like it must have just been a really quick assignment, like just a little skit that was sort of like an interpretation of the painting.
Gosh.
But I was like, you know what, me seeing this, and really I was like, everyone in this program that's a studio artist needs to see this and remember what the world is like. That I just not that you need to dumb down your work and make it so that every single person from every culture and every age would understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Not that, but just remember, like just see that and
Remember
then
that the rest of the world is not like the world you're living in right now, where you're with other people who are thinking about the same things that you're thinking about.
Right. So I just think about my work as like sort of more. I'll think about, well, it's not really here, but like the way that, just you psychologically experience something as you're like walking through a space, and so I guess it's sort of like my design background and interest in design and space, and that's just what
I saw your piece
into.
at the Bulldog Inn.
Oh,
your
yeah.
room installation. That was really cool.
Thanks. I keep trying to learn every time I have to do an installation where most of the like that, like I'm happy with the piece, but I wanted to do, there was a lot more I wanted to do with it, but I was just
I mean, that's just like a time.
so sucked into I spent a whole I paid for 3 nights like a month before.
Oh my gosh.
I brought in, I was like a crazy person. I brought in all this foam and like had the whole room like a disaster, and I was cutting it and shaving it and sanding it to make it like all the panels. I didn't just like cut them and bring them in. It was
they were clearly
carpet-
fit for the
carpet like curved, and then the walls weren't straight, and it still wasn't perfect, and it was so much time doing that and not getting to really just do what I wanted with it. But anyway.
I liked it. It was really cool. It was some of the pieces, the performance stuff was just so loud.
I know.
And those, your room and the room on the end, it was so nice just to just go in there and it'd be quiet.
Well, then that was my worry. I was like, oh god, because this
Yeah.
feels so out of place here, because
is
it's
not.
just kind of like drilling bananas and
Yeah,
in the room
I
next
don't
to
know
me
what
were-
that. Yeah, the drilling the bananas while playing
Yeah.
karaoke. Well, what are you doing, Mouse?
What event are you going to? Is it for